guest is calling in right now. And ladies and gentlemen, I am joined with WCCW wrestler TJ Lightning. He's joining me right now. Good evening, TJ. Welcome to the show.
Howdy, Kenny. Thanks for having me on, bud.
Thank you for being on, and let's go ahead and begin. How did your wrestling career got started?
Just like most of you good wrestlers around here, watching it as a kid and growing up, I was always one of the smaller ones around. Everybody kept telling me I couldn't do it. And, of course, going to live shows just kept me getting into it till I finally found a good trainer and got into the business.
So, who were your favorite wrestlers growing up?
In my age group, you got your Ric Flairs, your Austin Idols, Ken Patera, Ronnie Garvins, your Randy Savages, of course your Junkyard Dogs, and then on up to your Shane Douglases and Shawn Michaels. I tried to faction my style a little more toward the Ric Flair, Shane Douglas, Shawn Michaels, all kind of mixed together.
And do you remember your first ever wrestling match that you had? And if so, who was your opponent and what company did you work for at the time?
That first match was for TCW, and that was in Cynthiana, and it was against Wild Bill. First match was actually supposed to be against Purple Haze. He claimed to have a knee injury that night. I think he was just scared of me. But he did end up cracking me in the back of the head with a crutch.
Going into that match, your first match after years of training and doing maneuvers and such, did you get nervous? Did you get the butterflies leading up to that match?
I was so sick before getting to the arena. I couldn't hardly see straight. But once I put on the gear, heard the music hit, just like I belonged there.
And how would you describe your wrestling style? You consider yourself technically style, high flying, submission specialist. What would be the best way to describe TJ Lightning's wrestling style?
Well, anybody that's ever seen me live and in action, I'm sort of a mix. I'm a high-flying, technical, old-school wrestler. But now, don't get me wrong. I ain't afraid to take shortcuts when I need to.
Well, man, for those who just tuning in, you're listening to Triple Threat Wrestling Radio right here on the talk channel of ITMIRadio.com. My guest of the evening from WCCW, TJ Lightning is joining me. And I believe you have a match scheduled for WCCW this coming Saturday night. And why don't you go ahead and talk about it?
Well, this coming Saturday, I don't know who Black Rain's going to throw up in my way. Let me tell you, and I know he's probably listening, it don't matter who he puts in my way. They done stripped me of my Kentucky title, and that was just a crock. And I'm coming back for it, no matter what I got to do to get it. I've got a 24/7 rule just for me against Purple Haze. So anywhere I can catch him out and I can find a licensed referee in the state of Kentucky, I can put him on the ground for a 1, 2, 3 and take my belt back. So it don't matter who he puts in front of me. I'm looking for my belt back.
And that will be taking place this Saturday night at Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. You can go to Wildcat Championship Wrestling, search for it on Facebook. And
actually, Kenny, it's the real Wildcat Championship Wrestling.
Okay, yeah, the real Wildcat Championship Wrestling. Just look for it on Facebook, and it'll look out for the poster, and it'll give you the info and everything, and upcoming matches and shows as well. So other than WCCW and TCW you pointed out, what are some of the other wrestling companies that you work for?
Oh, just off the top of my head, there was WSW, HCW, SRW, CWA, BBW. Really got a lot of work in with them back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Just several different companies I've worked for over the years, and I've got nothing bad to say about any of them.
What do you consider as the highlight of your wrestling career? It could be a match that you had, a championship you won, or maybe a storyline, an angle you was a part of. What do you consider as the main highlight of your career thus far?
I probably couldn't point out just one. There's been several. Of course, just like any real wrestling fan that becomes a wrestler, meeting and working with some of the legends that you grew up watching and getting to shake their hand and stepping in that squared circle with them, that's huge to me anytime I get that chance. And, of course, any titles I've ever won. I was the first BBW light heavyweight champion. I've held championships just about all the places I've ever worked. Those are great highlights in my career because not everybody can say they're a champion, but I've always been a champion.
And when I look at TJ Lightning, when I look at a lot of wrestlers these days, especially those that may not be the most biggest guys, the heaviest guys, but successful guys, you think of the CM Punks and the Daniel Bryans, guys, and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels back in the day. For a guy of your size, how does that make you feel to see, wrestling companies give those guys opportunities, being that they're not the biggest guys? It seems like that's what wrestling focused on back then, but now it's like it don't matter what size you are. It's matter who fills the seats, who's best on the microphone, who's best in the ring. I mean, how does that make you feel to see guys like Punk and Bryan getting the opportunities that they've gotten?
Oh, that's the way it should be. I mean, it should be on a man's talent, not on what he looks like in a pair of shorts. I mean, you can probably give most of that credit to Spike Dudley. He was probably one of the smallest workers ever, and look how far he made it. He kind of paved the way for everybody that you're talking about.
And, Spike Dudley, definitely an underrated talent. He, when you think of the Dudley Boys and you think of the ECW days, he was just one of those guys maybe people didn't take seriously, but he definitely he's a pioneer in the business, well respected. He wasn't just, ECW and Dudley-esque. He was a guy that pulled some caliber matches together. So I got a lot of respect for Spike Dudley. So who do you consider, your favorite workers that you like being in the ring with, wrestlers that you like to have a match with?
Probably my favorite match I ever had was with Tracy Smothers. Just a Class A talent from forever ago. Still one of the better workers out there. Of course, Chris Michaels, Todd Morton, both those guys made it to the big time. On an indie level, you're looking at Purple Haze, Black Rain. I don't think he's working anymore, but Biohazard. Me and him, we had feud after feud after feud, just loved to beat the hell out of each other. And Sean Bain, up-and-comer in the indie scene. Keep your eye out for him. Of course, he can't beat me, but he ain't bad.
I hear where you're coming from, man. I hear where you're coming from. And who are some wrestlers out there? It could be on the indie scene. It could be on the pro level that you haven't had a chance to work with, but would like to work with someday.
I'll tell you what. You're going to see him on TV soon. Paradise, working with OVW right now. I'd love to get in the ring with him. Shane Douglas, Dutch Mantel, just throwing a few names out there. Of course, any of the legends that came before us, be my pleasure to get in the ring with them. And of course, I'm willing to give any of these new guys a shot. Of course, they have to know stepping in the ring that they don't have a chance, but I'll give them a shot.
And why don't you go ahead and promote your links, Facebook, Twitter, or any other links people need to know. I know you just recently opened a new Twitter account, so why don't you go ahead and promote your links, man?
The Twitter account is at the TJ Lightning, TheTJLightning, and on Facebook it's TJ Space Lightning. Look it up. add me. Be glad to add any of you fans. You want to see what real wrestling looks like? Look it up.
So, what do you like the most of being a professional wrestler? You like interacting with the fans? You like being on the road, traveling, hanging out with your peers, being in the ring, competing? What do you like the most of being a professional wrestler?
Well, most of the fans don't tend to like the way I handle myself most of the time, because I did tell you, I ain't afraid to take shortcuts from time to time. Of course, I've got stories on top of stories of traveling the roads with different people. Most of them are probably a little too rated R to be on this show, but we'll keep that to ourselves. The in-ring competition is what keeps me in this business. I love it. Can't get enough of it.
I've had wrestlers that's been quote unquote weighted on. So I mean, there's no holds barred on this show. Just letting you know.
Well, heck, my mama might be listening to this show, Kenny. Come on now.
Oh, okay. Well, I understand that part. We don't want to make Mama Lightning mad or anything. So.
That's right. Trust me. I ain't a bad man when it comes comparing me to that woman. Believe that.
Absolutely, man. So, what would your advice be to anyone out there that wants to pursue their career as a professional wrestler? What would your advice be?
Well, first and foremost, don't never let nobody tell you can't do it. Because anybody that's seen me or going to see me, you're going to see me and think, how in the hell does that little feller get up in that ring and take that whooping? You can do it. If you set your mind to do it, you can do it. But you got to be very careful getting in this business. Very careful. Look out for your trainer. Don't just pick somebody and go to some wrestling school because they tell you they know how. You got to be very careful about that. The biggest thing I want to tell the new guys trying to get in this business, the biggest word you got to remember is respect. Because it seems like they don't pay dues like we had to when I broke into the business. Hell, I was putting up rings for a year, taking them down, hauling them back and forth. I don't know of any kids putting up rings anymore. They just show up to a show and work. You're not going to have to pay dues like we used to, but you still have to have respect for the workers that came before you and the business, most of all. And get some gear. Look like you're a wrestler. Don't just buy a pair of basketball shorts at Walmart and throw on some Chuck Taylors. That don't work.
Again, I'm joined with TJ Lightning from WCCW right here on Triple Threat Wrestling Radio. Follow him on Twitter at the TJ Lightning, and check him out on Facebook, and be on the lookout for his match this coming Saturday night. If you are in the Lawrenceburg, Kentucky area, go check them out. They are on every single Saturday nights, so check them out. TJ, it was great talking to you. Thank you for being on the show. Best of success goes out to you going forward. Again, thank you for your time, and you have any final words and shout outs, man?
One thing for people to look forward to WCCW, other than me whooping Purple Haze's ass and getting my belt back, they're building up a really big show for February 9th. Anybody that's within the sound of my voice, if you can get to that show, trust me, you got to be there. And I want to give one shout-out to Lori D. How's that?
All right, man, and well said. Thank you again for being on. You have a good night, sir.
Kenny, it was your pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. You have a good night. That was TJ Lightning joining me here on Triple Threat Wrestling Radio.